Well, good morning. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I don't know how well this is going to go, but we're going to give it a shot. Carly told me I had to keep it really short. She dared me not to say that, so there you go, Carly. Call you out. I'm going to try not to look at Tina because she's going to throw me off. So, first off, I want to start out by saying Happy Father's Day to everybody out there that's a father. You guys do an amazing job with your children, I'm sure, just as I feel I do with ours. But I want to lift this time up also in this day to our Father in heaven, because He's our Father. As we father our children, He's fathering us as His children. So when we ask our kids to do something and they don't do it and we get a little aggravated, I wonder if He gets aggravated with us, when He's trying to lead us somewhere and we're not quite going in the direction that He wants us to go. So I'm going to walk around a lot, because I'm nervous anyway. So I wanted to bring that out there first, because as well as it's been our day, it's His day. Every day is His day, but we lift Him up as our Heavenly Father today. So, well, my start with God and church started when I was probably about this big. And I was in England, and we had to go to Sunday school. We didn't want to go to Sunday school. We had other things to do. We had toys to play with. We had, bikes to ride. But our parents said we had to go to Sunday school, which we never really understood because our parents never went to church. But we had to go to Sunday school. So Sunday school to us was, in England, it's a very structured situation. It's not like Kids Space that we have here, to where, there's the learning involved with the, they put the fun in with the learning also. Over there, you sit in a church pew, just like you would in a church, in a very, very old church. And the vicar would come up with his white collar and his black shirt, and he would just literally read out of the Bible whatever he was going to read that day to you and stuff, and you was meant to take that in. Well, at 5, 6 years old, you don't take a lot of that in. It's just like, if you had a watch, you'd be looking at it. So Sunday school was something that we had to do basically until our parents gave us the choice as to whether we wanted to go or not. One day the choice came, well, did you guys want to go to Sunday school? And it's like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Now we get a choice? We've been going there now for 5, 6, 7 years, and now, they're actually putting it in our hands, and we're like, nope. So, we didn't go. So that's where it all started. I would say at that point right there really wasn't any seeds or anything of that nature planted at that point, because we was too young to listen, really. Too young to pay attention. And the actual level of the instruction on the reading was way above where we was. We was just kids. So then life goes on. I grew up through my teenage years and stuff, and turned 19, came over to the United States, and went through all that situation, and, ended up obviously staying here. And it wasn't until a year after I was over here that I met my wife. And she's an amazing woman. When I met my wife, Joshua was 1. He just turned 1 when we met. So we went through the dating situation, and we went through 10 years of living together. Not knowing Christ, not following Christ, not going to church. Living together as a 3-person family. And then, as time goes on, Kyle came along, and then it was 4. So, and it wasn't actually until I was 45 years old. Now, I guess they say everybody comes to Christ in their own time. Well, my time was 45. I'd done the first 45 years on my own, and whatever it was that I'd muddled up or messed up or made mistakes at or tripped up or went the wrong way, I was ready to put that behind me, because I figured this is really messed up over here. didn't look that messed up at that point in time because, as a father, as a parent, as a husband, you try to pave the way, you try to lead your family, you want to be head of the household. I mean, you want to make sure that your family is taken care of. Well, it wasn't until later on in life that I realized that it was a lot more than monetary items and things that the kids needed, or things that we needed as a husband and a wife were the most important things. The most important things were the fact that we didn't have Jesus in our life. Joshua at that point in time was we thought originally he was going to a youth group, because he always used to tell us about this group, Road to Life youth group. So we figured it was this youth group, and he'd been going for quite a while. It's actually Road to Life Church on Niles Avenue in St. Joe. And he'd come back and he'd tell us stories and stuff, and I mean, he had a passion, and I mean, he had a fire that, I mean, it was like white hot. Joshua had never done anything halfway. He either went all the way or he wasn't going to do it, so, but that's just how Josh was. And then one day he had some knee surgery. And he was home on painkillers and stuff, and he had the big, back then it was, he had the brace and stuff on, and, he had the crutches. And he said, well, I really want to go to worship. He said, will you guys take me to church? We're like, sure, we'd take you to church. How long are you going to be there? We got these questions. Well, how long are you going to be there? Do we have to go in? Are people going to stare? Yeah, because that's what you feel like when you go into a new church. You walk in and you're like, so you just want to kind of go in. Don't be late for church, especially if you're new. Everybody looks then, so, and don't get up and leave when the speaker's speaking. That's not good either. So, but anyway, we said, yeah, we could take you to church. So we loaded him up in the back of the car, and his leg out here like this, and the crutches. And we took him in, and he wasn't feeling real good when he got there. And he said, well, I'm only going to be here for like 15, 20 minutes. I'm just going to, do worship. So why don't you come in? And I was like, oh, man. He done reeled that in, Like, man, I'm like, okay, so we unload him out of the car. I'm like, wanted to trip him at that point. So in we go, and of course there's people at the door, and, hi, welcome, my name's such and such, and hi, so we didn't have names at that point. So, but, so we went in, and, and it was a big church, and it's like, like you would do, we're going to sit in the back, Josh is like, oh, no, we sit up here. And it's like, no, if you sit in the back, you can see everybody. He said, if you sit up front, it doesn't matter who's looking at you, so he drags us up front. So, and then the worship team come out, and, they started worship and stuff, and I'm like, wow, your foot starts tapping a little bit and stuff, and it's like, this is pretty good. So we got through that and stuff, and of course then the questions, like, on the ride home, well, what do you guys think? You want to try it? You want to go? And we're like, music was good, Didn't know too much about the pastor at that point because we didn't hang around to listen, It's like, hey, you said 15 minutes, So, but, so we went back anyway, and we actually attended the Road to Life Church for, I think it was a little over 3 years. And wasn't long after I got there, I got on the worship team. Joshua was already on the worship team at that point. And so I would sing. Back then we had a lot of services. And it's like when I started going to church, I realized that what was missing in my life, because all of a sudden I just started filling up with things. I mean, it's like I was experiencing things that I'd never ever experienced before in my life, you know. I mean, I would see somebody on the street, or see somebody down and out on their luck and stuff. I mean, I'd cry. It's like it was terrible. I wanted to help everybody. And it was like that for quite a while. And I sat down and talked to Josh. I mean, his dad talking to Josh. He's my Christ counselor, Joshua. And I said, what is this? I said, I don't get this. I said, I see people in the street. I said, I want to help everybody. I said, I'm sad. I said, it's like people asking for money and stuff. And if you got money, you give them money. And it's like, he said, that's fine. He said, you just got to do what your heart leads you to do. He said, you're going to feel that way. He says, and the situation grew and grew and grew, and I just had this feeling inside of just deep, deep, deep sadness. And it's like, and I began at that point, when it got to that point, it was almost like I regretted going there in the first place, because I was sad. It seemed like I was sad all the time. And but as time went on and I walked through these things and stuff, I could see that it was just Jesus working inside of me, and he was changing things inside of me. Not through anything that I had asked at that point, because I even, I remember going into the pastor's office once and stuff. I was like, I was gaining this fire to learn, for knowledge, and I had this thirst, and it was almost unquenchable. It's like I just wanted to read. I'd go to Sunday morning service. I'd go to Sunday evening service. I'd go to Wednesday service. It's like I was going to church 3 times a week. And I was just cramming stuff in. And my wife, she was like, "Going to church again?" I was like, "Gotta go," So, and she'd always go on Sundays. But a lot of the time on Sunday, we'd do worship twice. So we would be there. And then I got involved in the youth group there. But I forgot where I was going with that now. Sorry about that. But anyway, but I had this thirst and this knowledge just to learn everything. I just wanted to. I couldn't get enough out of it. And I talked to Josh, and again, I would talk to Josh about it, and it's like, he says, well, he said, you're doing fine. He says, but he says, he said, even God, he said, in church and Jesus, he says, you still got to do it in a moderate state. He said, if you fill your entire life with it, he said, that's good, but there's no room for nothing else. He said, so you have to realize that what you're experiencing is real, and what you're experiencing is good. It's God walking inside of you. But you now have to figure out how to balance it in your life, how to make it work for you. And because I worked in construction, so going through my early walk with God, I'd be on the construction site, and construction workers are like sailors. Nothing against sailors, but so, yeah. They know all the good words and a lot of the bad ones, so, and it got to the point where it was offensive if I would hear it, and it was like, man, that's just doesn't even sound right, which I'd never really thought about before, because it was nothing for me to, I was one of those, but I realized at that point that I wasn't choosing who I wanted to be around, and I wasn't condemning that person for the way they spoke. It's just that I was feeling the change in me was I didn't want to speak that way anymore. I didn't want to act that way anymore, and these are changes that I had nothing to do with. They're not like I got up one morning and turned around and said, well, I'm not going to cuss anymore, because, that's like dieting, that never works. So, so these are changes that he was walking through me and stuff. And as time went on at the church and stuff, I got involved with a lot of things, to do a lot of plays and stuff, and we built sets at the church, and it was really good. then a situation happened with Joshua, and you'll notice that a lot of my walk involves Joshua, because Joshua was the one that introduced me, to my walk. But something happened with Joshua at the church, and a married woman. Well, he was pushed out of the church. They turned around and told him, you're done. You're out of here. And me as a father, I'm like, well, okay, what you done was wrong. You know that. You realize that. He said, I understand that. But it was a one-sided push. So, as a father, I had an issue with that. It's like, wait a minute. It takes two. It takes two. But the girl stays, So he was pushed out. So, like I said, me and my wife, we backed out. And we said, well, this is it. If Joshua at that point in his life was really in need of some guidance, he really needed to be turned around from where he was at and put back on the path he was on when he was white hot. Because right now he just had his embers going at this point, He still had it, but it wasn't like he had it. And they just pushed him away and said, no, you're tainted, you're done, You're not welcome here. I mean, and those words were spoken to him. So that hit us as parents as not a good situation, so we backed out. Never heard a word from them. And I'm not condemning that church whatsoever. I mean, the pastor from that church is an amazing pastor. He's a good guy. But I didn't agree with that process. So we backed off. So there for a while then we was a churchless family. Now, I was still doing everything that I was doing at home and stuff. I mean, I was still doing my reading. I was still doing my praying. I was still talking to God. I was still making God first thing in the morning. That was the first person I spoke to. So I'd do a devotional, I had all these things going on. And them things never faded. I mean, I've done them things all along, even through going from one church and ultimately ending up right here on the stage. But for that period of time, and I forget about how long it was, but it was for quite a length of time, it's almost like Sundays didn't feel like Sundays anymore because we didn't go to church, It's like that part that we had placed there because we knew that that's where it fit wasn't there anymore. So we went back and forth, and we went all over. I mean, and like Jason said, I'm a runner. I run. And I'd run by here all the time. And I'd hear them singing and worshiping, practicing here and stuff, and I'd be like, man, they sound good, So I'd still run by. And I'd go home, I'd tell my wife, I said, man, I ran by the gym again. I said, they were singing in there. I said, these sound good. We should go check them out. Not that worship should be my first course of, well, if the worship's good, I'll come to your church, So the message is as important as worship, So we bounced back and forth and stuff. I mean, we went all the way to Kalamazoo, we went to Waterville, we went all over the place, and we tried different churches and stuff, and we'd sit there and we'd go through the service and the sermons, and it just didn't feel right. There wasn't a fit there, We would leave, and my wife would look at me and we wouldn't go back. And then we'd try another church out next weekend, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Well, we were sitting there one Saturday, and my wife said, you going to run tomorrow? I said, yeah, I'm going to run tomorrow. I said, I'm going to run early, though. She said, you're going to run early? Why are you going to run early? I said, because we're going to go check that church out. We want to keep running by it. you know? She said, okay. So, well, I ran, came. We got ready, came back, came in here and stuff, sat right about where Carl is at. And worship came on. And I was like, man, they sound good, you know? Worship felt good. I mean, it wasn't just words. It wasn't just a song. It wasn't just a noise. You could feel it inside. And I think that's the difference between worshiping when you sing than just singing. Everybody can sing, you know. And I think everybody here in church is capable of worship. And I think everybody does a great job of worship. And I think our worship team, whether I was on it or not, I would say is probably the best worship team I've ever heard or has been put together. And there's a lot of work that goes into that, and there's a lot of thanks to Jason and Corey for that. They do an amazing job. So we came to church, and it was like you could feel that music. I could feel that music in my heart and stuff. And I remember we listened to the message, and I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and I was like, this is it. I said, I don't believe how many times I ran by this place. I said, and the thing is, God was probably playing that music extra loud so I could hear it, you know? And it's like, he'll stop one day. He'll stop one day. Because, you know, it's like everything else. You know, we want things to happen on our time, you know? But it's not always our time. Our time, when we think we're ready for something, we could just totally mess it up, you know? But when God knows that we're ready for that, he will put that into our life because he knows at that point that we can take care of and we can handle what he's given us. Now, my wife's mom told me once, and my mom doesn't go to church, but she told me once when I was going through something before I moved over here, she said, God will never put anything into your life that you can't handle. He will never put something there that is going to just totally break you, you know. And I remembered that all those years. And now we'll go back to the running here a little bit because what I want to talk about a little bit now, you've kind of seen how I got here and where I'd been before I got here. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the one time that I've prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed, and I've always wanted to hear a reply or get a sign or whatever the case may be. And again, signs aren't what we might see, you know, what we're expecting to see, but they come in the form of other things, whether it's a person, whether it's something that happens that day, whatever the case may be. Well, I was walking up at my sister's, sister-in-law's house, and I was pulling a bunch of dead limbs out of a tree and stuff. And that's back when I was running. I was running every day and stuff, and I done something to my knee. And I was like, uh-oh, that's not good. So I iced it up, stayed off of it for a while and stuff. Didn't run for a week. Drove me crazy, you know, because, I mean, I run a lot. So, and then I said to Linda, again, this was a Sunday. I said, I'm going to go for a run. She said, well, what about your knee? I said, I'm going to see how it's like. It's been a week. Should be fixed, you know? So, and so I got out and, you know, got my running shoes on and stuff and went out the door. It was a nice day. And I started running, and it was like, you know, I mean, I'm like, well, you know, if it won't go up first, force it, you know? I mean, that's how it works, right? I mean, if you can't bend it a little harder, get a bigger hammer. You know, so, and I started running, and I got from my house probably about, less than a quarter of a mile away from my house, just on the other side of Red Arrow Highway on one of those subdivisions over there. And I remember my knee was just in terrible pain. I mean, to the point where I'm like, I'd kneel, I'd step down on it, and I'd bring tears to my eye. Well, back then I used to run with my phone and stuff. I called my wife, and I said, that's it. It's done. She said, what's done? I said, my knee. It's done. No more running. She said, what's going on? I said, I can't even put any pressure on it. She said, well, where you at? I said, on the subdivision across the other side of the road. And she said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I said, I guess I'm going to stand here for a while. She said, well, you want me to come get you? I was like, no. Well, you're just going to stand there? I'm just going to stand here. Yeah. So she said, well, call me if you need anything. You know? A knee would have been good. So I stood there for a while, and I know I shared this story before with Jason. And I just stood there and I started praying. I mean, I felt at that point in my life, I was praying harder than I'd ever prayed before. Because praying for me at the beginning, I didn't understand it. It's like, well, you would say something and you'd be like, no, that's not right. He ain't going to like the way I put that. And you're trying to write this thing out, you know. Well, a prayer isn't something that you sit down, that you rehearse, that you write down, that you put on paper, then you pick it up and read it. That's not a prayer. I mean, that's a story, you know. So, and I remember going back to the road one time. That's where I got lost the last time. I called the pastor, and I said, hey, can I see you? I said, I got a question. He said, yeah. And I was relatively new at the church then, but I had this, like I said, I had this fire I was telling you about. And he said, well, what's the problem? I said, I don't think I know how to pray. He said, you don't know how to pray? I said, no. I said, I need some help here. I said, should I speak out loud, or can I speak silently? I said, will you hear either one? He said, I'll hear whatever you, either way. I said, well, is there a right way and a wrong way? He said, when you talk to God, you can talk to God just like you're talking to a friend. He said, he doesn't require that it's scripted or it's put in a specific way. He just requires that what you speak comes from your heart. I was like, sweet. Now I know how to pray. That was a quick lesson. But anyway, so I was on the side of the road here, and I was praying. And like I said, I'd probably prayed at that point harder than I'd ever prayed in my life. Well, I thought that was the hardest, but then I didn't know what was to come later. But and I remember praying to God, and I said, God, you know, I started running. I'd only been running for about a year at that point. As I started running a year ago, first off, I don't even know why you have me running. Am I running from something or to something? You know, but I was running. I said, but it seems that this knee that you're giving me is done. I said, I feel that my running has something to do with what it is that you want me to do. What it is, I don't know. I still don't know today. I said, so if I'm still meant to run, you're going to have to help me. You're going to have to help me run. I need to move from this spot. And I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed. And after I got done praying, I started running. I ran almost 5 miles. Had no knee pain whatsoever. I came back, my wife, she called me several times. And if I'm running and my phone rings, I won't answer it, because that means I have to stop running. So now if my wife calls and she calls like 2-3 times in a row, then that's a signal I need to stop running and answer the phone. So, but she just called once, and I got back home and she turned around and said, what happened? She said, you called me, told me you can't walk, you're standing still, you can't move. I said, I prayed. I said, and God healed my knee. That is gospel truth. I mean, I ran 5 miles that day, but I only ran 5 miles because I asked God to help me run them 5 miles, because I couldn't do it on my own. There was no physical way I could move from where I was at, because, I mean, I could just to step on it, let alone to lift this foot off the ground and then run forward on that. So that was my experience that I had with God, the first experience that I had, and at this point, the only experience I've had with God healing something that was wrong with me. So I believe in the healing power of God because I've experienced it firsthand. We're going to jump forward basically to what we're going through right now. Today's going to be a tough day for me because I only have one of my sons. I'm glad that my other son is in heaven, but I would rather him be right here. I'd rather him be on that base, worshiping God like he used to. And he worshiped like he had a fire for worship, and he's shown that when he was up there. So we're in England on vacation, 7 days into a 3-week vacation. At 1 o'clock in the morning, we'd just gone to bed, the phone rings. And it was in the kitchen. Well, I missed it, and so I went out to get it. And I said to Linda, it was Kyle. And she said, oh, let's give him a call back, see what he's doing, because 1 o'clock in the morning over there, they're 5 hours in front of us. So, I mean, it's, you know, what was it, 7 o'clock at night? Somewhere around there, 6, 7 o'clock. So we call him up. And Kyle's on the other end of the phone. And he's a mess. He just kept saying he was sorry, he was sorry, he was sorry. Well, without him speaking the words, we knew what had happened. And my wife just totally lost it. So I'm talking to my son, Kyle on the phone. He doesn't know what has happened. He doesn't know how it happened and stuff. So the words that Joshua died. So my next course was, where are you? What are you doing? Who's with you? I didn't want him being on his own. We was 4,000 miles away. There is nothing worse than being somewhere and you can't get to where you need to go by getting in your car and driving. I felt totally helpless. I walked down to my sister's house and woke them up and stuff. They come down and stuff, and then I went back, obviously, to my wife, and she just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried like I'd never expected it. I mean, you know, obviously that's what she's going to do. But I seen a side of my wife that she kept to herself for what I mean, I'd never seen it before, so I assume it was something that she kept to herself. In the initial shock of finding out that her son had passed, we never once blamed God for taking him. And I think that is a human instinct that, you know, why would you do this, God? God does nothing bad, you know. And it's like I spoke before, we have things that we want done on our timeline, but we have to understand that God's timeline is the ultimate. When God requires that I go, he's going to take me, any one of us. We have no say-so as to when we're born, and we'll have no say-so as to when we go. And I sat there consoling my wife, and she was crying and just rocking back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. And I have absolutely no words to say that are going to be of any help whatsoever. There is not a word in the dictionary that can make anything like that better. And she turned around and told me, she said, when I first held Joshua as a baby, I knew God was going to take him from me. And she'd never told me that before. And I asked her, I said, what? She said, I knew when I first held Joshua, when the nurse gave Joshua to me, that God was going to take him from me. And Josh and his mom would have many, many day trips together. They called them Mom and Josh trips. They never always went really well, but they happened. So with me walking, he got to spend a lot more time with Mom than, obviously what I did. I would see him in the evening and stuff. And Josh had his hiccups in life, but I don't look at his hiccups and the things that were bad in his life and remember those things. I remember the good person. I remember the fun. I remember the laughter. It doesn't stop the tears, on a daily basis, because it's really only been 2 months since he passed. But, so yeah, holding my wife, and she turned around and said that. So, and then she also told me, she turned around and she said, Joshua turned around and told me that he would never grow old, that he would die young. And I said, well, when did he? I said, really? And she said, yeah, really. And she said, and I would always tell him, don't say that. It's not what a mother wants to hear, And he turned around and told his mom, it doesn't matter. She said, he says, I know where I'm going. He said, it's fine. I'm not scared of dying. He said, I'm going home. And he was definite about that. He knew that as like, this is wood. That's how he knew that. As sure as that wood was wood. I'm not sure I could have handled those conversations with Joshua. We look at our wives, we look at ourselves as, the husband, we look at ourselves as being the strong one and stuff. I don't think sometimes we realize just how strong our wives are. Our wives are amazing people, My wife is by far the greatest gift that God ever given me. Is it a gift I deserve? I look sometimes at if I'm having a bad day, it's like, maybe I don't deserve it. But he thinks I do. And she is an amazing woman. My 2 sons, Joshua and Kyle, are amazing kids. Kyle hasn't found his way to church yet, but as bad as things are in the world today, I wish he'd find his way quickly. But I didn't find my way to God until I was 45 years old. I don't want him waiting that long, because that's 20 years down the road. Who knows what's going to happen in 20 years? But it's funny, again, as a father and stuff, it's like, I would pray. I prayed a prayer to God. I said, God, I said, I know Kyle hasn't reached out, I know he doesn't go to church, but I know, I said, that he believes in who you are. I know he believes that Jesus died on the cross. I said, and I know that his belief is in you and not in a Big Bang Theory. I said, so, God, I give up my place in heaven to give to my son if he doesn't come to you first. And I would do that for him because he's my son. I would do that for either one of my sons. So going back to Joshua. So the next day, well, actually that night, we couldn't get a flight home. We was calling. Everything was just way too soon to get home. And we prayed and prayed and prayed about getting home. It's like, God, you got to get us home. You have to get us home. There's nothing, we realize there's nothing we can do for Joshua, but we have to be home. There is so much to do. Basically, Mom wanted Kyle. That's what Mom wanted, That's the boy that she had left. And so we prayed and prayed and prayed. We got in the car. We threw all our luggage in a bag. What we didn't care to throw in the bag, it's like, well, leave that. You can send it later, whatever. So throw everything in the car, and we drive to the airport in Heathrow in London. we walked through the doors and walked up to the first counter we come to, and we said, we need to get to the United States on the next plane. Well, why do you need to go so quick? Well, our son died. He died last night. We need to get home. Okay. So they generate a couple of tickets and stuff. My wife's got a hoodie on. She's got a pajama pants. She's a wreck. She wanted to lay down on the floor. And my sister turned around and said to her, honey, you can't lay on the floor. She said, you're wearing a hoodie, laying on the floor. She said, you're going to look suspicious. She said, then I'll let you on any plane. So she said, you got to stand up, you know. So we finally got our tickets and stuff, and he turned around and said, okay, he said, your plane leaves in 20 minutes, and it's a 20-minute walk to where your plane's at. So kiss, 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 goodbye, love you, out of here, off we go. We get there just as, you know, the last few people are getting on the plane and stuff. And I remember sitting on that plane thinking 8 hours was going to be eternity, because it didn't matter how fast that plane was going, I wasn't going to get home quick enough. And we'd go through just periods of just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. I mean, people were probably wondering, you know, I mean, wow, why did these people decide to go to America if they're going to be so upset about going there? You know, they had no idea. Didn't want to eat, didn't want to drink, didn't want nothing, you know. Do you need anything? No, we're good, you know, get there and stuff. And we're sitting there in the plane. And I remember my wife finally fell asleep. We lifted the arm up because there was nobody in between us, and had her lay her head on my lap and stuff, and she finally fell asleep for a while. And I laid there, sat there, and I started to pray continuously, you know, because I wasn't praying for an answer. Well, actually, I was praying for an answer. I was praying to God, and it's like, God, I need to know that my son made it, you know? And I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed. God gave me a vision of my son taking his hand and going to heaven. Now, he gave me this vision because I think that I have to tell everybody about this. But now, this wasn't as easy as what he expected it to be, I'm sure, because Joshua had things that he was holding on to, things that weren't good for him, things that were pulling him down, things that weren't of God. So what I seen was right up to the very end was the struggle and the fight that Joshua had. And it was literally a fight between heaven and hell. As he passed up through, and I can't paint this picture, I can just tell you what I seen. There was this glow and these hands reaching up, and they was pulling him down. And he was fighting. I mean, he was fighting for all he was worth to pull out of the clutches of what was pulling him down. Because I believe the devil never rests. You know, we don't want to mention his name. We don't want to acknowledge him. But he's as real as what God is. And he wants you more. Well, he doesn't want you more than what God, but he wants you as much as God wants you. He wants what God has. He wants to take it from him. You know, he's not worried about the people that he has because he already has those. He wants what he can't have. And Joshua was in this fight for his eternal life. He wasn't in this fight for life because his life had ended. But Joshua was in this fight for eternal life, and he was being pulled down, and he was yelling and screaming and praying to God. I could hear him verbally in my ears, and I could visually see him. And it was just heart-wrenching to see what was going on with my son, because again, it was something else that I had no control over. I couldn't reach out and say, do nothing. This was his fight. And this is a fight, I believe, that he showed me this, that every one of us could possibly go through if we're holding on to anything and we're thinking, oh, nobody knows about that. I'll keep that back here and nobody can see that. No, they can see it. Out of all the hundreds upon hundreds of hands that you could see that was trying to pull my son down, one hand pulled him out. And I remember when he got up to where he was going, he turned around and he told me, he said, I'm okay, Pops. Just as he always said it, I'm okay, Pops. And I think God showed me that for a reason. And like I said, I think the reason is we cannot hold on to anything from this life that isn't of God. We cannot hold on to anything that is keeping us from being fully engaged with what God wants for us. And I used to think this was just a very complicated situation, this walk with God, this Christianity, this being saved, this going to heaven, this living a right life. Living a right life is probably the hardest part of the entire equation. But imagine you wanted a new car or a new truck, whatever it is, and all you had to do is want it, and it would be yours. It's given to you. That's all we need to do with God. All we have to do is want that relationship. It's free. We don't got to earn it. We don't got to pay for it. It's nothing. It's free. It's given to us. Okay? So, let go of that stuff, whatever it is. I mean, and I'm not saying everybody has something. I know I got stuff, and I need to work on it. I mean, I need to get rid of it, I got to say, this family as a church was amazing with the funeral situation, the food, the preparation. You guys were unbelievable, every single one of you. I mean, and I thank you for my wife and myself from the bottom of our hearts for everything that you did do, and for the comfort, that you gave us as we went through, as we've been going through this. It's a struggle every day. I mean, we decided we was going to take Joshua home after the cremation and stuff, and I talk to Joshua every day. I talk to God. I get up, I'll talk to Joshua, and I'll tell him where I'm going, It's a human thing, We understand that he's not there. We understand what we're talking to isn't him. But at this point in our life, it's helping. We realize that this isn't anything that you get over. You can't get over 31 years of having somebody in your life, and then all of a sudden, it's over. It's almost like somebody turned the light switch out. It's not a material possession. It's a human being, It's somebody that you held, somebody that you loved, somebody that you raised, And we miss him terribly every single day. But we know that he's in a better place. I mean, it's even like, when all his friends got together and they let all them lanterns off. I mean, the fact that these lanterns all went off and there was just, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 of them and stuff. And that them lanterns formed that cross in the sky. I mean, that's another indication that Joshua's okay. It doesn't make us okay as parents, each day brings a new challenge, you know. So each day I have to go to God, and I have to ask God to give me the strength to get through that day. I started back to walk last week, which for me occupies my mind a lot more. My wife's still at home, which, we have a kind of a support group in place in the event that, she needs something. But this goes back to, we think that we can't handle things in our life, but God shows us what we can walk through in life if we walk through it with Him. And that's the only possible way you could ever deal with the loss of a child, is to walk through it with God. If I didn't have God in my life, and I didn't have this church, and I didn't have you guys as an extended family, I honestly don't know how we would have got through this situation. And we're not getting through it. I want to change that. I mean, we're getting by. We'll never get through it. It'll never be over. It's something that will last our entire life. But in God's wisdom, He needed Joshua. So that's why He took him. And He knew that we had a strong enough foundation with Him that we could handle this. Because if somebody asked me if I could handle it, I'd have turned around and said, there's no way. The pain is so horrible that you couldn't imagine. I mean, people have gone through it. I'm not the only person to go through this, and I'm not trying to say that we are, but right now we are going through it. But I wouldn't wish this pain on the worst person in the world. Anybody that was a father or a mother that has a child that suffers a loss, and there's so much loss in the world going on today. I mean, it's everywhere. It's all over. It's all over the place. I mean, I don't even want to get involved with that and talking about that. I just want to basically end with, I guess I should end, sorry. The fact that God is good. God is hope, God is love. He's them three things. And He gives us those three things that we can believe in Him, that we can trust in Him, and by believing in His word and what He done for us, that we can go through anything in life. So, like I said, thanks for listening, you guys. I don't know if it made any sense, but it was good to speak about it. I do want to say, though, you guys got anything that you're holding on to, let it go. Don't make sure you're not taking it with you, because the end might as well be as easy as you can possibly make it, and let's make it all for God's side. Let's make it a one-sided situation, okay? Everybody here is going up and stuff. We don't want to have to struggle to get there, And unfortunately, He did, but the bottom line is He made it. And I'm thankful to God for that He's got him. He's well. He's doing good now, and I thank God for that. And thanks for listening.
Guys, we're gonna close with a song that has meant a lot to Kevin and Linda, and I can just share a couple of the words with you. A song by Bebo Norman sings, and says, "God, my God, I cry out, your beloved needs you now. God, be near, calm my fear, and take my doubt. Your kindness is what pulls me up. Your love is all that draws me in. And I will lift my eyes to the Maker of the mountains I can't climb. I will lift my eyes to the Calmer of the oceans raging wild. I will lift my eyes to the Healer of the hurt I hold inside. I will lift my eyes to you." What a What an awesome place to be. And Kevin just shared with us that's what we've got to do. There's no other hope than the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. Amen. He's it. But he's all we need. You guys believe that? He's all we need, isn't he? All right. Let's worship.
God, my God, I cry out, your beloved needs you now. God, be near, calm my fear, take my doubt. The kindness is what pulls me up. Your love is all that draws me in. I will lift my eyes to the maker of the mountains I can climb. I will lift my eyes to the calmer of the oceans raging wild. I will lift my eyes to the healer of the hurt I hold inside. I will lift my eyes to you. God, my God, mercy sing a melody over me. God, right here, all I bring is all of me. Your kindness is what pulls me up. Your love is all that draws me in. I will lift my eyes to the maker of the mountains I can climb. I will lift my eyes to the calmer of the oceans raging wild. I will lift my eyes to the healer of the hurt I hold inside. I will lift my eyes to you. 'Cause you are, you were, and you will be forever the love I needed to share. 'Cause you fashioned the earth and you hold it together, God. So hold me now. I will lift my eyes to the maker of the mountains I can climb. I will lift my eyes to the calmer of the oceans raging wild.